Imagine playing like the most important basketball game of your entire season.
Right. The stakes are just massive.
Exactly. And the opposing center, he just had his appendix removed literally 19 days ago.
Barely 2 weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah, he is visibly exhausted. He's wearing this massive layer of padding over his surgical scar, and he can, barely even jump.
He's practically grounded the whole game.
Right. And on paper, your team is built on speed, relentless driving, and just attacking the rim.
That's their whole identity.
But for some inexplicable reason, your entire roster is just completely terrified to go anywhere near him.
Yeah, it really makes no sense when you just look at the physical matchup.
I mean, that is exactly the bizarre reality the Boston Celtics faced against the Philadelphia 76ers last night.
It's one of those games that just completely breaks the illusion that basketball is always this game of pristine analytics.
Oh, for sure. Shot charts kind of go out the window.
Exactly. Like, we are deep enough into the playoffs now that the math is just breaking down. It's pure psychology.
Yeah. Intimidation and survival instincts taking over.
Boston had literally every physical advantage in the fourth quarter, but Philadelphia just won the mental warfare.
And that is the mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking the raw mechanics of playoff survival for you, the casual fan who wants to get completely caught up.
Right, getting the absolute smartest takeaways from the week's action without having to watch hours of game tape.
Exactly. So we are breaking down how the Sixers managed to stay alive, how the San Antonio Spurs executed this just surgical closeout against Portland, and how the New York Knicks are simply bullying their way through the Atlanta Hawks.
Lots of heavy-hitting series.
For sure. And then we're pulling back the curtain on the NBA's front offices to examine a radical, highly controversial draft reform proposal designed to just kill tanking forever.
The through line here today is really desperation.
Ooh, I like that. Desperation.
Yeah, we're watching teams and front offices realizing that their traditional playbooks are failing, so they're forced to adapt in real time or just get left behind.
Well, let's start with that Boston-Philadelphia matchup. The Sixers pull off this epic survival, a 113-97 Game 5 victory on the road.
Huge win in a hostile environment.
Massive. And now they force a Game 6 back in South Philly. And Joel Embiid was really the anchor of this entire bizarre phenomena.
The guy played 39 minutes, just weeks after abdominal surgery.
Which is absurd. And he drops 33 points and 8 assists.
Such an incredible stat line for a guy who was clearly hobbled.
But what really fascinated me is that he went 0 for 5 from the three-point line. He realized immediately his legs just weren't under him for the jumper.
Yeah, the lift just wasn't there at all.
Right. So he completely changed his approach on the fly. It was like watching a video game final boss whose health bar is practically empty.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. But the Celtics were inexplicably terrified to attack him in the paint. Why did a team as smart as Boston completely abandon their entire drive and kick game just because a hobbled Embiid was standing in the lane?
Well, he weaponized his lack of mobility, honestly. When a superstar realizes their jump shot is dead, they usually try to just force their way to the rim.
Which usually ends badly, right?
Oh, yeah. It often leads to offensive fouls or turnovers, especially when they're fatigued. But Embiid didn't do that.
He adjusted.
Yeah, exactly. He moved up to the top of the key and just started setting these massive bruising screens for Tyrese Maxey.
Initiating that slow, methodical two-man game.
Right. He essentially dared the Celtics defense to fight through his massive frame.
Yep.
And when they overcompensated to stop Maxey, Embiid would just take one heavy dribble into the paint and draw a foul.
Wow. So he dictated the entire tempo of the game without even having to sprint.
He really did. And it completely broke Boston's offensive rhythm on the other end of the floor.
Because Boston is a team built on that drive and kick basketball. Right.
Exactly. They want to penetrate the paint, force the defense to collapse, and pass out to the perimeter for an open three.
But Embiid clogging the lane was like, I don't know, parking a stalled semi-truck in the middle of a Formula One track.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. The Celtics are built for speed and spacing, but instead of driving at him or around him, they just kept slamming on the brakes.
But why? I mean, why panic?
Because the drive and kick system requires the defense to actually react to you. When a Boston guard drives the lane, they expect the opposing center to step up and contest the shot.
And that movement is what opens the passing lane to the corner.
Exactly. But Embiid was so physically compromised, he just dropped deep into the paint and outright refused to move. He conceded the mid-range.
So when the Boston guards drove, they saw this mountain of a man just waiting for them.
And they panicked. They would stop their drive, like 12 feet from the hoop, do this hesitant pump fake, and then just pass the ball back out.
To a teammate who was already closely guarded on the perimeter.
Right. Which totally explains why Boston shot an abysmal 11 of 39 from three-point range.
Oof, 11 of 39. That is brutal.
They weren't taking those smooth, inside-out catch-and-shoot threes their offense relies on. They were taking stagnant, contested threes late in the shot clock.
Which led to that epic fourth-quarter collapse. I mean,
Yeah.
Boston scored only 11 points in the final 7 minutes of the game.
Just completely fell apart, relying on all that stagnant isolation basketball.
Yeah, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown went a combined 0 for 8 from the floor in the fourth quarter. 0 for 8.
And that is where Philadelphia's supporting cast really capitalized on the momentum shift. Embiid created the psychological barrier, sure, but Tyrese Maxey and Quentin Grimes provided the actual firepower.
Maxey was relentless. He dropped 25 points and 10 rebounds.
And it hit that highly contested three-pointer late in the third quarter. That shot erased Boston's lead and just completely silenced the arena.
It really did. But honestly, Quentin Grimes is kind of the unsung hero of this game for me.
Well, absolutely. He had 18 points off the bench, which is huge.
Yeah, but his real impact was defensive. With about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he picked up Jaylen Brown full court.
Incredibly physical, hard-nosed defense.
He wasn't just staying in front of him. He was actively denying the catch, fighting over literally every single screen, and using his hips to bump Brown off his driving angles.
Which completely wore Brown out.
Exactly. By the time Brown actually got the ball in his hands, there were only like 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and his legs were totally exhausted.
And he forced that terrible flat jump shot that missed badly.
Right. That specific defensive sequence by Grimes is really what sealed Boston's fate in the fourth.
It's the defining mechanism of playoff basketball. When the primary scorers are bogged down in a tactical stalemate, the team whose role players win those sheer physical effort battles will take the game.
So true. Philadelphia dragged Boston into the mud, and Boston simply didn't know how to wrestle.
Nope, they sure didn't.
Well, smoothly transitioning here, while the Sixers used mental warfare and mud wrestling to survive, the San Antonio Spurs opted for high-speed surgical precision to officially close out their series.
Yeah, they really stepped on the gas.
They beat the Portland Trail Blazers 114-95, winning the series 4-1. And this is the Spurs' first playoff series victory since 2017.
9 long years. And the contrast between how Boston failed to close and how San Antonio executed is just stark.
It really is. San Antonio put on an absolute offensive clinic early on. I mean, they were up by 26 points in the second quarter.
They were shooting the lights out, but, playoff teams always make a run.
Right. Portland adjusted in the second half. They cut that massive 26-point lead down to just 9 points.
Yeah, they switched their defensive scheme, deciding they were going to switch every single screen to stop the Spurs from getting open looks.
And that is usually the exact moment where a young team tightens up and completely blows the lead.
Exactly. But De'Aaron Fox completely diagnosed what Portland was doing.
He played the absolute hero down the stretch. He scored 21 points, including 11 crucial points in the final 6 minutes.
Because when a defense switches every screen, it naturally creates mismatches. Fox realized that by calling for a screen from a big man, Portland's lumbering center was suddenly forced to guard him out on the three-point line.
Which is a nightmare scenario for a big man.
Oh, a total nightmare. Fox just isolated them, shifted his gears, and blew past the defense over and over again.
He really recognized the structural flaw in Portland's comeback strategy.
Yeah, switching defense takes away the three-point line, but it leaves your interior defense incredibly vulnerable if that perimeter defender gets beaten off the dribble.
Fox exploited that math perfectly. But we can't discuss the math of this game without talking about the physics-breaking reality of Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, man. Just an unbelievable game from him. 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 blocks.
One of those blocks literally broke my brain.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Right. Deni Avdija drives the baseline, throws up this really high floater, and Wembanyama rotates over and blocks the shot over the top of the backboard.
Swatted it straight into the crowd above the glass. It was insane.
Offensive players have this subconscious calculus when they drive to the rim, right? They know the general launch angle required to get a ball over a 7-foot defender.
Yeah, it's just muscle memory at this level.
But Wembanyama's wingspan just completely invalidates that calculus.
It forces opposing guards to either shoot the ball with such a high arc that it throws off their accuracy entirely, or just completely abandon the paint.
He totally alters the geometry of the court.
He really does. And what Coach Mitch did down the stretch to secure this closeout was brilliant. He simplified the entire playbook.
Yeah, he brilliantly milked that high pick and roll with Fox and Wembanyama at the top of the key.
Exactly. If Portland's guards tried to stay with Fox, he just blew past them. If they rotated to stop the drive, Fox threw a lob to Wembanyama,
Whose catch radius is practically the entire paint.
It's unguardable.
I am going to push back a little on this San Antonio offensive strategy, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yes, watching Fox and Wemby run a two-man game is devastatingly effective against a desperate Portland team. But is their ultimate success really just going to boil down to Fox and Wemby taking 20 shots apiece?
You're wondering if it's sustainable.
Exactly. Can a two-man volume shooting approach actually work against elite defenses in the next round? Won't teams just load the paint and force the ball out of Fox's hands?
Well, if they were truly just a two-man team, an elite defense would absolutely dismantle them by doing exactly that.
Right. They just trap Fox at half court.
And dare anyone else to make a play. But Coach Mitch hasn't built a two-man isolation roster. He leaned on the Fox-Wemby pick and roll to secure this specific win because it was the most efficient tool for that moment.
To stop Portland's momentum.
Exactly. The broader reality of this Spurs roster is their overwhelming depth. They have so many other ingredients they can mix into their offense.
That's true. You look at the box score, and Stephon Castle dropped 15 points.
Yeah, they have an offensive system that routinely features multiple players scoring in double figures.
So the volume shooting from Fox and Wembanyama is more of a luxury they deploy to close games.
Exactly. It's not the sole engine they rely on for all 48 minutes. And the ultimate reward for executing this closeout now is rest.
Huge advantage. They get nearly a full week off to rest minor injuries.
Just sitting on the couch while the Nuggets and Timberwolves physically batter each other in a grueling series.
And that physical toll is actually the perfect pivot to our next series.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if the Spurs won with speed and geometry, the New York Knicks are proving that you don't need a scalpel when you have a sledgehammer.
They are playing some heavy, heavy basketball right now.
The Knicks just took a 3-2 series lead by utterly dismantling the Atlanta Hawks 126-97.
It was a brutal display of sheer, undeniable physical force.
Yeah, the Knicks realized they had a massive size and strength advantage, and they just stopped trying to match Atlanta's pace.
They turned the game into an absolute brawl in the paint.
And Jalen Brunson was virtually unstoppable. He owned 39 points on Atlanta.
Just relentlessly attacking the rim and collapsing the Hawks' defense.
Brunson's drives were the catalyst, for sure. But the actual mechanism that destroyed Atlanta was rebounding.
The offensive glass was completely owned by New York.
The Knicks bullied the Hawks in the paint, grabbing offensive boards at will. Mitchell Robinson's size completely overwhelmed Atlanta's backup bigs like Tony Bradley.
It was a huge physical mismatch.
And they translated that size advantage into 20-second chance points. But it wasn't just Robinson being taller. It was how the Knicks created those rebounding angles.
Right. It's about the defensive rotation.
Exactly. When Brunson drives into the lane, Bradley has to step up to contest the shot. That rotation leaves Robinson alone under the basket with some smaller Atlanta guard trying to box him out.
Which is just a fundamental breakdown of physics. A 6'5" guard simply cannot move a 270-pound center out of the restricted area.
It's impossible. And the Hawks just completely fell apart. C.J. McCollum and Jonathan Kuminga struggled immensely to hit shots.
So Atlanta had no answers defensively and no way to punish the Knicks in transition on the other end.
Meaning New York could commit all their energy to crashing the offensive glass without fear.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. When a team is facing a deficit like this, where they are just fundamentally smaller and getting bullied on the glass every single possession, is there even a tactical adjustment Atlanta can make? Or is the series basically over?
You know, you can't coach height. You can't teach a backup center to suddenly gain 40 pounds of muscle before Game 6.
So traditional adjustments won't work?
No, they won't. If Atlanta wants to survive, they are trapped unless they commit to an extreme schematic gamble.
Like what?
Something known as hyperspacing.
Okay, paint a visual picture of what a hyperspacing lineup actually looks like for you and me.
It basically means removing your traditional lumbering big men from the game entirely. You put 5 players on the court who can all shoot from the perimeter.
So inserting someone like Buddy Hield into the front court rotation.
Exactly. Offensively, you place all 5 players completely outside the three-point line. This forces a massive center like Mitchell Robinson to leave the paint and guard his man 25 feet away from the basket.
Wow. So you're essentially telling the Knicks, we know we can't out-rebound you inside, so we're going to try to run you off the floor by shooting 45 threes.
That's the gamble. But the inherent risk there is catastrophic.
Because if Atlanta goes small and misses those threes,
They have absolutely zero rim protection or rebounding on the other end. Mitchell Robinson would just catch every single miss.
which is probably why they've been so reluctant to pull that lever.
It's a total desperation move. Your variance increases wildly. But without taking that gamble, the Knicks simply realized they were the bigger, better team and flipped the switch. They'll run the same script in Game 6.
And just end Atlanta's season.
Yep.
Well, watching teams fight tooth and nail in these playoff series is exactly the kind of basketball the NBA wants.
That's a great product right now.
But they are absolutely sick of what happens at the bottom of the standings during the regular season.
Oh, the tanking issue. It's a massive headache for the front office.
Right, so they're proposing a radical rule change to basically force bad teams to try. Let's break down this leaked 3-2-1 anti-tanking draft reform proposal. What exactly is it?
So it's slated to start in the 2027 draft, and its entire architecture is built to heavily penalize intentional losing.
The math on this proposal is just wild. Let's look at the 3-2-1 breakdown.
Yes, walk us through it.
Under this system, the teams finishing with the 4th through 10th worst records in the league get grouped together. They each get 3 lottery balls, which is an 8.1% chance at the #1 pick.
Which is a pretty decent shot for a team pipping 10th.
Right. But here's the massive shockwave. It's the relegation zone. The absolute worst 3 teams in the league actually get punished.
You got rewarded.
Exactly. They only receive 2 lottery balls, dropping their odds to 5.4%. And they cannot drop lower than the 12th pick.
That is a huge fall.
Huge. And just to finish the 3-2-1 math, the play-in losers, the 7 and 8 seeds, they get 1 ball.
It's a profound flattening of the draft lottery odds.
It really is. And there are draft limits too, right?
Yeah, under this proposal, teams cannot win the #1 pick in consecutive years, nor can they have a top 5 pick in 3 consecutive drafts.
Even if their record is terrible every year.
Exactly. And they did include a sunset provision to expire or be reviewed by 2029, so it's somewhat of a trial run.
But look at the mechanics of this. Punishing the 3 worst teams in the league feels like, I don't know, taking crutches away from someone with a broken leg to teach them how to sprint.
That's a brutal analogy, but it's not wrong.
Right. Does this just trap genuinely bad, small market teams in an inescapable cycle of mediocrity?
That is the big fear. It synthesizes a lot of implications. The league is laser-focused on punishing blatant tankers like Utah sitting completely healthy players at the end of the year.
Because the NBA sees that as a blight on the product.
Exactly. But in their attempt to stop intentional losing, they heavily damage organic rebuilds.
Because if a franchise has a terrible roster, they aren't losing on purpose. They just lack NBA talent.
Right. And you look at the bizarre math of it all. A playoff bubble team like Golden State could end up with the exact same 8.1% lottery odds as a genuinely terrible team that only won 25 games.
You're essentially rewarding mediocrity while pulling the safety net away from absolute failure.
Exactly. And capping top 5 picks over a 3-year span removes the one sliver of hope a genuinely bad team can sell to its fans.
It's an incredible overcorrection. But, anytime you introduce a complex new set of rules, general managers will find a way to exploit them.
Which leaves us with a fascinating, totally unintended consequence of this new rule.
Oh, can't wait to hear this.
Think about it. If the 9th and 10th seeds get more lottery balls than the worst teams in the league, won't we just see decent teams intentionally throwing the play-in tournament games?
Wait, really?
Yeah. Imagine you're the 8th seed. You know you can't beat the 1st seed in a 7-game series. But if you lose your play-in game, you vault into the lottery with highly valuable odds to draft a superstar.
Oh, wow. Did the NBA just accidentally invent play-in tanking?
They might have. In their quest to stop teams from giving up in March, they might incentivize teams to throw single elimination games on national TV in April.
That is absolutely wild. It just goes to show whether it's an injured center clogging the lane or a GM manipulating lottery odds, human psychology always finds a way to break the math.
It really does.
Well, thank you for listening. Please comment, like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, Spotify. Please leave 5-star review. It will help the channel grow. Until next time, please check our previous episodes.